you folks better wake the hell up. I've been fighting these bastards for most of my life because I knew what it was like growing up in South Carolina, where my grandmother had me in the house by dark. Because if little nigger boy get caught out there on Johns Island, South Carolina after dark, I got to worry about the Klan, I got to worry about the John Birch Society, and I have to worry about the White Citizens Councils. And you folks just let them into the White House. They don't give a damn about Trump. They'll take Trump out in a heartbeat because Trump is not their boy. Pence is their boy. So all you folks demanding that Trump get impeached, like, Maxine Waters, yeah, you take Trump down and you got Pence as the president. And then Pence brings in his other John Birch Society boy, Ted Cruz. Seriously. This is not going to be a fun show today, folks, because I'm going to be brutally honest with you and brutally hard, because it might be my last show, but I am pissed. Because I've been warning folks for 25 damn years what you guys have allowed these black folks like John Lewis and others now who crying. John Lewis is making money because of Donald Trump's popularity off of him. John Lewis was a sellout from day one. He's one of those Boulay House Negroes that didn't do a damn thing for the average black folks, only their talent at 10%, and now all these Boulay folks who have sold us out are going down because the Boulay is no longer needed. You got your Boulay boy who's probably listening right now, Michael Steele out of Maryland. He's the one who brought the John Birch Society back into the mainstream of the Republican Party in 2009, and now they have taken over the Republican Party, and Republicans don't know what the hell to do. This country is done because they hate the federal government. The only thing they hated more than the federal government was that Negro in the White House. They will destroy every federal program they can. And let me just tell you folks something. Donald Trump went to the White House, but this was the plan. On the first day Donald Trump swears in, we'll go away for the weekend, and on Monday he was going to get rid of all executive orders until Barack Hussein Obama sat him down and go, whoa, you may not want to do that. See, they thought Trump could come in, eliminate all executive orders, and then come back and they will decide which ones they put back on the books. Because, Mr. Nelson, when I started doing radio shows with you in the 90s, Newt Gingrich, who got in because of McDonald was the head of the John Birch Society on that Korean Flight 007 that got shot down by the Russians allegedly, because I ain't never seen a body from that. And there was a husband on that plane who called his wife after they were all supposedly dead. Gingrich took McDonald's spot in Georgia. Gingrich came in with the Congress, and they passed a little law that most people don't know about, because Clinton was getting rid of all these ridiculous laws that Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush had put on the books on executive orders. So Gingrich passed a law going, if a president passes an executive order and another president comes in and removes it, you can't put that back on the books as an executive order without going through Congress. So when Barack Hussein Obama enlightened Donald J. Trump about
Hang on a second, Mark. We got to take it. Yeah, we got to check the traffic and weather. I'll let you finish on the other side, and then we get to some folks who've been holding for you right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9 WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us and our guest, Mark from Anaheim, and those folks who had some people tweeting me saying they have problems listening to us at WOLDCnews.com. Go to the TuneIn app and download that. I don't think it's anything suspicious. It might be just a lot of traffic on that line. But anyway, Mark, I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying.
You do that. So anyway, as I was saying before the break, okay, so listen. I just wish I was making this stuff up, but I'm not. So Donald Trump goes to the White House. And if you all notice, Donald Trump came out the White House looking like he was shell-shocked. You know, like Steve Coakley and I used to always joke about John Lewis. John Lewis is acted and looked like he's been shell-shocked since King got killed. When we all, well, let me say we all, those of us in the know, let me just make this clear for you. Rosa Parks is not the godmother of the civil rights movement. One of my babysitters, Septima Clark, is the godmother of the civil rights movement. She was one of Martin Luther King's mentors. She was the only one who could get away with slapping him when he was doing something stupid and could get away with it. You guys look that name up, because most folks, all these black folks, all last week and this week, talking this crap about ML King Day, they don't know a damn thing about the Martin Luther King movement. And guys like John Lewis, Jesse Jackson, Ralph Abernathy, those guys were the sellouts. I call a spade a spade. The fact is, Josephine Baker was supposed to lead SCLC after King's assassination. That's who Coretta Scott King wanted. Because Josephine Baker, by the way, most of my mentors were OSS members and former World War II Nazis. Josephine Baker used to work with the OSS, and she wasn't no sellout. She wasn't one of these house Negro bully sellouts. That's who Coretta Scott King wanted to lead SCLC. Instead, they bring in Ralph Abernathy. Next thing you know, you got Jesse Jackson. He wasn't even in line. In fact, Jesse that day made sure he didn't get shot at the wrong Negro by wearing a turtleneck up there in Memphis. As you can see, I'm not in a good mood. And I'm just laying it out there for you folks. So anyway, when you go back and look at Obama and Trump at the White House, Trump comes out the White House looking like he's shell-shocked and going, oh, this was a great meeting. In fact, that was the longest meeting I've ever seen between an incoming president and an outgoing president, Mr. Nelson, in my lifetime. And then Trump goes, I got to go back. So let me just tell you, folks, as somebody who's a Marine Corps Mustang, for you guys who don't know what a Mustang is, those of us in the Navy or Marine Corps who are prior enlisted who become commissioned officers, we're called Mustangs. So as somebody who is a Marine Corps brat, Marine Corps enlisted, Marine Corps NCO, and now a retired field grade Marine Corps officer, and black, I know that the only reason I was allowed in the service was because of guys like the Montfort Point Marines. Mary McLeod Bethune from South Carolina, along with Eleanor Roosevelt, were the ones who convinced Franklin Delano Roosevelt to integrate all the services. Didn't happen before FDR died. Harry S. Truman did it. Listen to me very carefully, folks. The only thing that makes it legal for a black person right now to be in the U.S. Armed Forces is a 1947 executive order. These are the kind of things that Barack Hussein Obama enlightened Donald J. Trump when he went to the White House. So had Trump come in on his first day and clean house of all executive orders, that also would have included allowing blacks into the U.S. Armed Forces. You folks have no idea what the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, and ALEC had planned until Obama talked to Donald Trump that day. So now they're going back through now and figuring out, okay, which executive orders do we want to keep and which ones we don't? Because they were planning on getting rid of all of them and starting over with a clean sweep. That is the only thing that protects us from being in the service right now is an executive order, and any president can come in and remove a pre-existing executive order. And I challenge anyone to please come on this show in the next hour and prove me to be wrong or lying to the listeners. As we speak, Mr. Nelson, if you want an idea of what's going to happen in this country, just look at North Carolina. Democratic governor won. The Republican went out kicking and screaming, refused to admit that he lost. Why? That would have given these Tea Party, John Birch Society bastards the 34 states they need. Right now, they have 33. If North Carolina had gone to that Republican governor, which I'm surprised it didn't, because while Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary, she ain't saying nothing. While these Democrats are talking all this crap about Putin and Russia, we don't need Putin and Russia to rig the election. You got the Republican Party using a cross-check system that eliminates millions of blacks, millions of Latinos, millions of Asians from the rosters who are eligible legal voters, and their votes don't count. Why the hell do we need Putin to sabotage the damn election? But I digress. So in North Carolina, had that governor from the Republican side of the House won, they would have had their 34 states. Why is this important? They need 34 states to finally get rid of the federal government. They've got 33 right now. They need one more. And we got the 2018 elections coming up. You got as many as 34, if not 36, Democratic people who are either facing re-election or are termed out. And I think they're going to get there. They're going to get their 34th state by 2018. If they get their 34 states, folks, the federal government no longer has power in this country. That's your Article 5 Constitutional Convention. So when you see folks like Jill Stein trying to get that vote recall, she was setting it up for your Article 5. Donald Trump, people are already asking if he's going to go after the 14th Amendment. I'm not making this up. Michael Medved just talked about it on his show today, less than an hour before I came on here. They've got 33 states. They need 34. Right now, the governor of North Carolina has been shackled. Everything that he's going to try to pass, the Republican-led Congress has already passed all these legislation and brought up these old laws to basically make him a powerless governor. I haven't seen anything like this in North Carolina as far as the history I've read since back in the days of the Reconstruction, when blacks gained a significant amount of vote in North Carolina, and they basically came in and killed the blacks who got elected. You guys do some research on that one. That's what's going on in this country, Mr. Nelson. They have shackled the federal government, and California's no better. California's already talking about seceding from the Union in 2018. Well, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. That's what South Carolina did. You succeed from the Union, you got your Civil War. Let's take some calls.
800-450-7876. Go San Antonio. First call on line 5, Eustace. Is Eustace still with us on line 5? Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Carl? What's up, Mark?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, man, I've been listening to the show for a while, man, and I just figured I'd call today because I'm a first-time caller, but I was listening to the lady that was talking about the veterans. And myself, I came in the military as a cook. And 03, they basically phased out the cook job. And I think Mark would probably know about this, but basically, when you come in as a food service specialist, you have to do formation. Your clothes have to be clean, pressed, ironed. You can't really walk on the road because that's food contamination.
Not only that, brother, I'm not going to interrupt you, but let me just tell you this, Mr. Nelson. As a commissioned officer, I would walk into any damn chow hall I wanted to and give them an on-the-spot inspection without them even knowing it. And this gentleman right now who's talking about food specialists, they would have to stand there and let me go through their chow hall and inspect them. Am I right, brother?
That's right. And I believe that's when it really started. And when I saw my actual job phased out, and that was like, heartbreaking because, of course, you join the military, aspiring to be a chef one day, and so. But if
actually, what Eustace, because we're coming up on a break, can you put in a question form so that Mark can respond?
Yeah, hey Mark, I just want to know that I think my objective is to keep this motivation going as a combat veteran, man, to bring veterans together to lead the way, man. And I was looking at my question is, how do we get loans and stuff like that, man? Because I would like to see if, we can launch businesses like lead from the front like we did in the military. Because right now, I'm so intrigued of just using the skills that the military has given me, not just to push the veterans, but to push these young people to say, hey, you could do something for yourself, man. You could make something yourself and just, work together, man, and just keep leading from the front like I did, man. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Do we have enough time? You want to wait till after the break for me to respond?
How much time do we have? I think we have 2 minutes.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Here's the thing, brother. A good example of what the brother's referring to, I'm just going to cite right now. Look at the demonstration going on against that pipeline on Native American land. What few people seem to know in this country, since most media is not covering, since they're all in bed with the corporate fascists, only 6 corporations now control 97% of all media in this country. 7 men in this country, one in Mexico, control 53% of the wealth on this entire planet. So what you may not know about what's going on with that pipeline on Native American land, the reason they were successful in at least temporarily stopping it, because God knows Trump and his boys are going to go in and take care of business, they're oilmen, is because 2,500 veterans went to that site and stood on the front lines between the cops, the private police, and the Native Americans. So there are veterans in this country who are waking up. So, brother, as a suggestion, what I would say is get in touch with the folks who are now involved with the demonstration on that pipeline on Native American land. And by the way, Mr. Nelson, several of the leaders are black veterans who went up there and they were like freezing because they're not used to that weather. So you got black veterans that are actively involved right now, standing on the front line and bringing together other veterans in this country who are conscious to fight against this corporate fascist system. And I would suggest starting there.
All right. 800-450-7876. Still waiting on our break. But let's go to Terry. Terry's calling us from Columbus, Ohio. Terry, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Oh, man, I can't believe you're trying to go surfing permanently, Mark. How you doing, brother?
I know nothing. And how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty bad. I just wanted to ask you if you could put it like in the context of like a movie scene, like the privatization that's going to take place. Like, what is it going to really look like?
Okay, well, see, for folks out there who don't know, it's called fascism. You don't hear these left-wing so-called progressives, Obama or anybody else use the term. It's fascism. Fascism is when corporations now run your government. Mussolini termed the coin fascism. Smedley Butler called Mussolini a fascist, and he was forced to retire from the Marine Corps. By the way, Smedley Butler, folks, if you don't know, he was the one who stopped them from performing a coup d'etat on Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And so for you listeners out there who really don't know history and think that they're not going to turn the U.S. military against personnel at home, I refresh your memory on World War I veterans, white World War I veterans, long before Occupy Wall Street. It was World War I veterans who were outside the White House protesting because they didn't get their benefits from World War II. MacArthur, Patton came on horseback with troops, burned down their occupied villages, shot and killed a lot of them like dogs.
Yeah, hold that thought right there. We got to take the break right now. Folks, you too can join the discussion with Mark from Anaheim. Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next as the big show rolls on from AM 1450 and FM. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. As most of you know, Mark's not his real name, and he's really not from Anaheim. But anyway, 800-450-7876 is the number to call to speak to. Mark, I'm going to let you finish up what you were saying before we left for the break.
All right, before the break, Terry from Columbus, Ohio, asked if I could put it into a movie form what I suspect would be or envision this country under a Trump Pence or whoever they decide to be in with the fascists. Fascism was a term coined by Mussolini, Benito Mussolini, Il Duce. I have a copy of his original book, his autobiography. Remember, folks, most of my mentors were former World War II Nazis and OSS members. Trust me, I know this stuff like the back of my hand. I have a copy of an original Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, but also a lesser-known book that I have, an original copy of, are all of Hitler's speeches prior to him being elected, called My New Order. So when I listen to Trump, none of this was foreign to me, because those speeches that Trump gave throughout his campaign came straight out of Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler's speeches. In fact, anybody who does any research will find that Trump keeps a copy of Adolf Hitler's books by his bedstand. I'm not making this up. So you have Benito Mussolini, Smedley Butler, Marine Corps General. He was the one who wrote the book War is a Racket. World War I vets, white World War I vets, were camped outside, like Occupy Wall Street, outside the White House because they didn't get their benefits. Patton, MacArthur on horseback with troops came in, burned down their shanty towns, shot them down like dogs. So if you folks think they won't use U.S. troops against personnel, you're an idiot, because they've already done it before against white World War I veterans. However, it's because of MacArthur and that act when the corporate fascists in this country, and I'm talking companies like J.C. Penney, Montgomery Ward, Remington, U.S. Steel, DuPont, they wanted to perform a coup against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They wanted MacArthur to lead this country. But they knew the enlisted troops would never follow MacArthur, because the enlisted troops remember what MacArthur and Patton did to enlisted personnel outside the White House against World War I vets. So they picked Smedley Butler. However, Smedley Butler, being the true patriot, he went to Gay Edgar Hoover and told him the whole plan. Hoover didn't believe it. They put it in the media, made him out to be a conspiratorial, paranoid. Hoover investigated everything that Smedley Butler told him turned out to be true. And when they came out with the final report, it was buried in the back of newspapers if it was published at all. And nothing happened to the conspirators, by the way. You had a similar thing happen here, by the way, in 2012 against Barack Hussein Obama, okay? Thank God for Petraeus being the Smedley Butler of our modern times. So I'm saying this to you because if you want an idea in a movie form, what these folks envisioned for the U.S., go back and find the movie, The Handmaid's Tale. Margaret Atwood from Canada wrote a book. Based on that book is a movie. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Nelson, this movie was like early 80s, and even in that movie it shows where they use a terrorist attack, blaming it on the Muslims to create martial law in this country and divide the country up into regions. The Handmaid's Tale, that would be the best movie I could recommend for you folks if you want an idea what the Sarah Palins, because they didn't vote for John McCain in 2008, they voted for Sarah Palin. They didn't vote for Mitt Romney in 2012. They voted for Paul Ryan. They didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. They voted for Mike Pence. These are your rabid, John Birch Society, far right-wing evangelicals who want to bring about an all-worldwide caliphate, just like ISIS over in the Middle East, as they call it, because I call it Africa. So I hope that helps answer your question.
All right. Thanks, Terry. 800-450-7876. Tyreek, Brother Tyreek's calling us from L.A. Brother Tyreek, you're on the mark.
Tyreek already knows Tyreek knows what's going on.
My brother, I am just so grateful to hear you. If it's going to be your last show, I hope not. But anyway, I overstand completely. I have been on this trail for many, many years, as you know.
Yes, you have.
I was fortunate enough to be a part of a study in the 70s, studying Germany from the Treaty of Versailles to the end of the war, is what taught me that they brought the Third Reich over here in 1944. Before the war was over, they brought them here. And by 1948, they put Project Monarch into the play, which is why we have all the mind control and all the reversal of thinking and all of the problems that we have amongst the people here, the dumbing down, etc. And so what we are under is the Fourth Reich already, as you've been so eloquent in explaining.
Well, brother,
and so I'm so grateful to hear.
Hey, brother, check this out, seriously.
Yes, sir.
I wish I was making this up.
I know you're not.
I truly believe that I was a product of Project Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
Because in 1965, I was on Johns Island, South Carolina, dirt poor, can't drink out of a water fountain. By the way, folks, please go see the movie Hidden Figures. That's the only movie I've seen.
I just saw it last night. Oh, that's a great movie, you guys.
That's the only movie in 20 years that made me come close to crying, because I lived that. I lived in Virginia. I lived in South Carolina. I know what it's like not to be able to drink out of a water fountain, because it said colored only over here. But I say that because in 1965, I'm on Johns Island, South Carolina. I'm only 5 years old, and I was already talking about test tube babies. People looked at me like, what the hell is he talking about? Now, how the hell would I know about test tube babies in 1965? But see, I was born in a hospital in New York, and I didn't find out until before my mom, shortly before she died, she confided to me that when I was only 2 years old, these white doctors in New York were using me for psychic experiments.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, please, Brother Tariq is not being hyperbolic here. I'm telling you, folks, Project Monarch is real, and I truly believe that I was a product of Project Monarch. But I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
No, and what you're having to say about the outcome of this so-called election, which is a se-lection.
Exactly.
And they've already selected these people way ahead of time.
That's correct.
The Simpsons program picked them 16 years ago to the exact everything. It's so uncanny. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you really want to see it, folks, it's right there in your face. Go look at the Simpsons episodes back 16 years ago. It will tell you who is going to be president, or whatever you don't want to call him. You know what I mean? And this guy, this Yiddish New Yorker belonging to the Khazarian Mafia, that's the only reason why he even came up the way he did.
And his father was a Klan member.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we're looking at and then they want to point at Russia. Man, you better be pointing to Tel Aviv, because that's where it's all coming from, folks. They're the ones running all the top institutions. They're the ones running all of the. Who was the controller under Donald Rumsfeld of the Pentagon? And what happened to the $3.2 trillion that was missing under Mr. Rabbi Dov Zakheim? So
and don't forget, you have to remember, you're going back now because you're talking about those guys, but World Trade Center, who had an office across the street from the World Trade Center? Netanyahu.
Netanyahu, yes. And he said it was good for Israel.
And Netanyahu's campaign manager owned the buildings at the World Trade Center.
Exactly. So, I mean, if y'all don't wake up and see this whole thing, there's something called the 800-pound gorilla in the room, folks. Google that, and you will see who became billionaires from the World Trade Center situation. And there's only 8 of them. So you got to understand, folks, that we are under mind control. We are under what they call, he calls it fascism. I call it corporatism, because it's even worse than fascism, because the corporations have no thought whatsoever. You don't count whatsoever. Their whole thing is bottom line only, and you're on the bottom. So, this is why I've been telling people, look, you got to get with your own story. You got to disconnect from this megalomedia that's going on. You got to get into who we are. And we've been here all these many thousands of years in this land before they brought anybody here from Africa, and before they brought any of the 40,000 a month that they brought here from England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales in the 1840s. Go look at the movie Gangs of New York, and you will see for yourself.
There it
Those
is.
are the ones who came. They're the ones who were thrown to the bottom of those
Right. Hey,
schooners.
Tariq, we're
and
coming
brought
up close
over
on a
here.
break. So, Tariq, just a favor. Can you put in a question for me? And before you do that, I just got a tweet from Brother Darren. He says The Handmaiden Tale version, 2017 version, is due out in theaters next week.
Imagine
Anyway,
that.
Brother yes, next week.
And don't
Tariq,
forget,
question for you.
Yeah, don't forget the movie Morgan Freeman did called "The Sum of All Fears," because they're telling you right now what's going on. So, and also look at go online and see Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, folks, because that's what's happening to you right now. Peace and love. Thank you so much, brother, and I hope to hear from you soon.
All right, here's another question there. Mark, you want to respond to anything you said?
No, for you folks who don't know, Tariq has been in the trenches longer than I have. And one of the things that Tariq didn't mention on the show, because one of the things they try to do is poison your water. And he's been trying to keep people sane, rational, and alive by providing systems that will give you clean water. And if you notice that whole debate up there with the pipeline, it's about the water. In fact, that's what the Native Americans are calling themselves now, the water defenders, because water is life. And these folks plan on destroying your water system because they can buy their private bottled water from icebergs melting in the Arctic.
All right, 800-450-7876. George is calling us from Alabama. George is on line 6. I know we're coming on a break real soon. George.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Doing good. We got about a minute.
Sir, how far are you from the BP oil spill?
I'm very close to it. Very
So
close.
you know about the people and the animals that are dying right now, and the media is not covering it.
Well, here's what I want to say. I'm a Marine Corps Vietnam.
Hang on a second, George. We got to take this break. I'll let you pose your question on the other side. Check our last check of the traffic and weather in the DMV right here on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. I mentioned earlier Mark's not his real name, and he's really not from Anaheim, but that's another story. 800-450-7876. You know what to call to speak to him. And this is because I've got a bunch of folks want to speak to him. So just if you can pose a question, appreciate it. Let's go back to Alabama. George is waiting for us on line 6. George?
Yeah. Mark, I'm a Marine Corps Vietnam combat 0311 grunt. I'm a retired officer.
Yes, sir.
Still a great officer, and I'm also a retired federal agent. And I live in Alabama, and please give me a chance to say what I'm going to say, okay? I think it's very important, and I believe some of the stuff you say, maybe 10%. But the rest of it, Mark, is so high. I mean, why are you outright lying to the people? I've listened to you several times, and this is the first time I'm calling in. And by the way, I'm on my way to Washington, D.C. But, Mark, you are making up. You're outright lying on
Well, give us an example.
Why are you doing that?
Give us an example of
Why
what
are
I'm
you
lying
doing
about.
that?
Give us an example of what I'm lying about.
Well, first of all, you say you were in '65. You were 5 years old. Then earlier you said during the Vietnam, early part of Vietnam or something like that, you were in high school. So
I never said that. I never said that. Hey,
and then you're talking about
I've never
what
said
Trump
that.
is doing. You're talking about the mess hall and all that stuff. You as an officer can go and put anybody, a mess cook and all that, at attention and inspect the hole. You can't do that.
The hell I can. As the officer of the day, I damn well can. By the way, Mr. Nelson. Wait.
Let me finish first.
I don't have anything else to say to this listener, Mr. Nelson, so we can move on. I don't have anything else to say.
I'm giving you. My name is George Williams. I'm giving you my truth.
Well, you've already lied, Mr. Williams. Because if you said you were an officer, you wouldn't be an 0311, so you're already lying. So, Mr. Nelson, let's move on.
I said I'm an enlisted man, then I became an officer. Yeah, I am. I retired an officer, Mark.
Let me come in here and George, give me one specific thing that he said that was incorrect.
No, he accused me of talking about the Vietnam War being in high school.
He won't let me.
I can't talk.
He won't let me talk.
I can't.
He won't let me talk.
I'm going to address something.
I didn't finish. I didn't finish, Mark.
You said something.
I didn't finish.
You just said something that you claimed that I said that I've never said. I never said that I was in high school in Vietnam, because I state that in 1972 I was at Quantico High School. That's not hard to find. I could send you the damn photograph of me in Quantico High School. I think the Vietnam War was still going on in high school in Quantico, Virginia, in 1965. Yeah,
it's about over.
All right, George, give something that he said, and forget about Vietnam and all that. Something that he said that's incorrect. What is it?
Well, about 90% of what he said is incorrect.
No, just tell me. No, just tell me one. We just want one.
Give me one.
George, just give us one.
Just give us one.
There's just so much. Well, let's
There's
go
so much, but he can't find one.
Let's go.
You have fun up there in D.C. at the inauguration, sir.
To the Trump situation, where he's saying that Trump and the what the hell? There's just so much.
Yeah, what the hell? I'm listening for one.
What Trump is going to do as far as he's not going to be in command, somebody else is going to be in command.
Yeah, just like George W. Bush. George W. Bush wasn't in command. Dick Cheney was.
Yeah. And you're a liar. You're a big liar.
All right, we're going to let George go because I'm not hearing any specific question here.
And
Mark,
Mr.
you want to respond to
Mr. Nelson, I am so glad that George called in, and I'll say why. Because these folks, one, they don't really listen. We live in a country today where people have lost the capability of actually listening because they're all waiting to talk, and then when they come back later and try to quote you, they misquote you. Now, folks, listen to me. Seriously. It's not a big deal. It's like I run a Marine Corps Quantico, Virginia Facebook site. So everything I'm telling you, I'm putting on that site. I got generals and people from the White House reading that site just like you're listening to me on the radio show. I've got my photo album from the damn Quantico High School book in 1972 when I was there. So while George sits here and tells you folks 90% of what he's saying is a lie, if you notice, he couldn't come up with one. The problem is, this is what the media has been doing to us also, folks. They don't tell you the truth. When folks challenge them, they divert your attention to something like Kim Kardashian or somebody else. We've been focusing on ESPN, MTV, sports, and all this other crap for so many years that, yeah, it is fake news. I'm going to give you a direct quote. Remember now, most of my mentors were World War II, former Nazis, Office of Strategic Service old boys. One OSS old boy, William Casey, who became Ronald Reagan. By the way, Ronald Reagan was John Birch Society. He was the guy who did all the public speaking for Barry Goldwater in '64, but Barry Goldwater was so far to the right that even those folks had to distance themselves. So when they put Reagan in back in 1980, and they stole that election, how? They cut a deal. William Casey and these folks went over to Iran, cut a deal with the Iranians to hold the U.S. hostages. I'm a Marine. For 444 damn days, they held my fellow Marines in Iran, knowing that would stop Jimmy Carter from getting reelected. 2 hours after Reagan swears in, all the hostages are released. But Casey, who was Ronald Reagan's manager, became CIA director. Of course, he had a convenient death right before he had to testify in Iran-Contra. This is a direct quote from Casey in 1980, I believe it was 81. We will know that we have won when the people believe all the news we provide them. So fake news is nothing new, folks. It's been fake news from day one. People sit here and tout guys like oh, God, I can't believe I just forgot his name. Mr. Nelson, who was the preeminent, Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite came from the U.S. Army. He lied to you. Dan Rather lied to you about what happened in 22 November 1963. And then, of course, Time Life buried the damn videos in the vault for years before we were finally able to see what happened with John F. Kennedy's assassination. They've always lied to you. As far as this election goes, that they're accusing Russia now of doing, I had an old spook, Mr. Nelson. He's pushing 90 now. He just moved from Southern California. So he called me up to tell me he was leaving town. And I told him about me, no longer doing radio shows once Pence or Cruz or whoever swears in. And this is what he said to me, sir, specifically. He said, son, the stuff that they're now claiming that Russia is doing, I was doing for the United States government back in the 1950s. And then the last thing he said to me, I know those radio shows you do with Mr. Nelson, and frankly, I'm still surprised that you're alive. That's a direct quote from him. Let's move on.
800-450-7876. Go to Florida on line 2. Jaja Buen is joining us. Brother Jaja Buen, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Hey, good afternoon. Brother Mark, how are you?
Every day is a holiday.
Well, it sounds like my brother. I'm glad you mentioned your Facebook page. I've been enjoying that. They call it Mark from Anaheim sarcasm, political sarcasm.
Mark from Anaheim, political sarcasm 101, and it's a fan page. The group site is the old one, but if you find that, I'll refer you to the new site.
Right. All right. Well, I'll leave that. They can find that, and they can find you afterwards. But on another note, just so I can say hello, and of course send greetings from Florida. Yes, but in addition, just so I can give you a little a pat on your back, brother, because this is information that you couldn't be more timely with. If anybody were to go to Hulu right now, Hulu is in production for The Handmaid's Tale. New production. It's going to premiere April 28th. So, folks, it's coming. It's just be.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know they had a new version coming out.
You understand. You understand. I know you didn't know that, and I'm just coming, and I'm giving that, and I'm sharing that to you.
And I'm letting you go in and right now. I'm telling you, folks, if Hollywood's bringing out that movie, there's a reason why. Because Hollywood always tell you what they plan on doing to you.
Exactly. That's the medium, and you can listen if you want to, and they're gonna compile it. And Hulu is the medium that they're choosing. So enjoy. Of course, as always, man, enjoy hearing your voice, and hearing your information. So don't give up. Don't worry about it. And Brother Carl, if he says he's surprised to still be alive, what does that mean for all the other people who interviewed him in the past? Are they in trouble too?
Oh, like yourself. Thanks, Jaja Buen. 800-450. I think he's gone. 800-450-7876. We got to come up on a break real soon. Let's go to Indiana on line 3. Mayhem, your thoughts. You're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Hey, Mark, what's going on?
Sir, I talk about you all the time because you're one of the few brothers who come out and let people know what really is going on in Indiana. And I know right now folks have to remember this vice presidential elect is from Indiana, the guy who passed the law allowing citizens to shoot cops if they want to. So that tells you how cop-friendly he really is. But in Indiana, there's just so much going on that the media is not covering. So, brother, I'm glad to hear your voice, to know that you're still out there, man.
Hey, I'm going to make it real quick. I want to go deep. Some of the stuff we're talking about has been going on, and for a lot of people, it's too late because
exactly
they think this they think this is entertainment, but it's not. People eating babies and molesting children, and people think it's funny. Hey, let me ask you, Mark, who is it? I'm glad that they didn't steal your soul or steal your energy. Who is it that they're trying to resurrect? And if they're so devilish, can they do it? Because I think that's what's going on. You can talk about it if you want to, but like I said, a lot of
hang on a
people think
second, ma'am. Hang on a second. I'm going to take another break right here, and then I'll let you finish your question for Mark. Folks, you too could join the discussion. 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls next. It's a big show. It rolls on from AM 1450 and FM 95.9. W. Thanks for staying with us and our guest, Mark from Anaheim. Again, the number to call to speak to Mark is 800-450-7876. Let's go back to Mayhem in Indiana. Mayhem, your question or comment for Mark?
Who are they trying to resurrect? Right, brother?
Yeah, and then I'm gonna say something. Then I'm gonna get off the phone. Like I said,
All right, let me answer your first. Let me answer your first question.
Okay.
For all the folks out there, I'm sorry, I just have to say this to you this way because I know a lot of people don't have access to the internet. For those who have the internet, Google General Mattis reincarnation. Like I said, I wish I was making this stuff up. What's your next question, sir?
Like I said, we just came back here, but my father was in the military, and I was born in Alaska. But anyway, like I said, Indiana, man, it's like a digital plantation. The Midwest is like a digital plantation. And I can't get mad at the people, but I feel for black people to think this stuff is funny that you're talking about, and they don't really want to take heed because they get in trouble, man.
And that's, brother, listen to me. And that's the real reason why I'm no longer doing radio shows. I'm not afraid of Trump. I don't give a damn about Trump, Pence, and these other guys. You know why I'm stopping doing radio shows? After 25 years and watching black folks allowing this to happen, I'm just so pissed off now that I'm done.
Yeah, I see what you're saying because our elders already told us about this. Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Yeah, so Mr. Nelson, you know, that's why I love Mayhem, man. No, the brother's really deep. Seriously, folks, Google General Mattis reincarnation. I wish I was making this stuff up. And they know me. And going back to that call earlier, George from Alabama, I didn't find out until right before my mom died because some things happened in my family life, so I went home to ask some questions, and she sat me down and told me how when I was born, these doctors at the age of 2 were using me for psychic experiments in New York City. And I don't recall much of this. But I always known that something was really different about me because all my life I've had people from all over come to me for information or advice. I had Mason. I've never been a Mason, never will be. But Masons come to me for information and advice. And lots of generals and other people come to me seeking my information or advice. And I say this to you only because with what's going on with Mayhem. On both sides of the U.S. flag in Congress is the symbol of the fascists. And they refuse to take that symbol down. Now, that symbol used to be on the back of the U.S. dime, the lady head dime. But when people start, you have to remember, it wasn't until, once again, Roosevelt, that most people in this country had access to information. Roosevelt was the one who passed the first GI Bill, so a lot of veterans coming home getting educated started asking questions. So they removed the fascist symbol off the dime, removed the lady head, and replaced it with something else. So you'll see that symbol of fascists all over the place because that's the Roman Empire symbol. And you'll notice Congress will never take that symbol down. We are like the reincarnation of Rome, and as Rome, we're going to go down. But Mattis, he's one of those, he's a zealot. Never been married. His whole life was to go to combat, to kill folks. I wish I was being hyperbolic when I tell you this. And he literally believes that he's some reincarnated from the Carthagines or whatever with the Roman Empire. And for whatever reason, many white folks who have come to me for advice, they say that I'm supposedly some reincarnated general from the Confederacy in the Civil War. Let's move on, Mr. Nelson.
All right, somebody wanted to repeat the name of the movie. It's Handmaid's Tale, correct?
No, The Handmaid's Tale. Now, the original was with Robert Duvall, and that movie even showed Mr. Nelson the shootout with LAPD during the Symbionese Liberation Army. So it had a lot of actual riot footage and stuff like that, but The Handmaid's Tale and Natasha was in that movie. Natasha died not too long ago from a ski accident. But there are some real oh God, I just forgot her name. But there's some big names in that movie, and it wasn't like a very well-produced movie as far as monetary value goes, but that movie shows you exactly what the Sarah Palins, remember she belongs to this evangelical church out of Wassalia, and how they want to divide the United States country. Oh, and they're going to round up all black folks, round up all women who've ever been on a pill or had an abortion, and divide this country into certain regions. The Handmaid's Tale. The book was written by Margaret Atwood. She was a Canadian. Well, she is a Canadian author.
All right, let's move on. 800-450-7876. Dee's calling us from Baltimore. Dee, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Yes, good evening, Carl. Good evening, Mark. Good to have you back on the air. I usually don't call in unless somebody is spitting a bunch of BS, or either they're telling what I consider most of the truth. So I'll lean toward the truth in your case. Two big questions. One, can you give a picture of the other side if Hillary had gotten elected? I think sometimes people talk about Trump without realizing the other side of the same coin. The second question is, you talked about John Lewis. I'm glad you did, to expose him. I even looked up his legislation, which mostly consists of a bunch of symbolic building name changing and other foolery. But anyway, I want to talk about Cynthia McKinney. Can you address her and what's going on with her and what happened to her versus someone like a John Lewis? And those are my two questions.
Yes, sir. So let's deal with number one. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was a Barry Goldwater girl. By the way, folks, the 5 top runners in the various parties, including the CIA boy out of Utah, Jill Stein, the Libertarian Party candidate, all of them, they all have one thing in common, Mr. Nelson: John Birch Society. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are related by blood. Hillary Clinton was one of the few people who could run on the Democratic ticket who could lose to Donald Trump, and she still didn't lose, so they had to steal the election. Now, just like in 2000 when Maxine Waters, a few other black congressional leaders, brown congressional leaders, Asian congressional leaders came out and demanded a recount or investigation into the election. Now, mind you, Mr. Nelson, the president of the Congress is the vice president. That was Al Gore at the time. He, along with the Democratic senators who won, only one, had to back Maxine Waters. None of them did. So let's flash forward to 2016. While Barack Hussein Obama gives a congressional medal to Joe Biden, once again, Maxine Waters, other black congressional leaders, other brown congressional leaders, Asian congressional leaders stand up and demand an investigation to this corrupt and how this election was stolen. The vice president is the president of Congress, Joe Biden, that Obama gave a medal to, didn't support, Maxine Waters, and no U.S. senator, because they only need one. Folks, they're all in on it together. This has been planned from day one. And I know that's what the brother was alluding to. They're all in on it together. They want.
Let me interrupt you. Did that include Maxine, then? Because she's the one who's beating the drums?
Please. She's part of the Boule. Don't get me started. And look, don't get me started. Anyway, I'll just give you an example like Maxine. When the 1992 Civil War happened, okay? Right, less than 1,000 yards from Maxine Waters' office in Watts were freight trains that were full of ammunition and full of guns, unlocked, so black folks could go over there thinking they're stealing a TV set, but they found guns and ammunition that they could use during the riots. Please, come on, man. Maxine Waters' husband, and she got busted for all the crap they did. And then back in the 80s, we had the Baldwin Hill fires, where, the black bourgeois. I love it because, guys like Tavis Smiley says bourgeois. I just call them out the boule. So all these, and a lot of them run LAPD. That's why they hate me. White folks love me. The boule hate me. So the boule who live up there in Baldwin Hills, who all had their houses burned down, they couldn't even get a loan from a bank in L.A., okay? That's how much they're included. They think they're included. John Lewis, he thought he was included too. Now he realized they're not included. And for all you blacks who want to have reparations because you're descendants of slaves and you're Masons, let me wake the hell up, folks. free and accepted Mason implies that you were never a slave or a descendant of slaves. The white Masons use you, and they don't even recognize you as real Masons. So all you black boule folks who've been selling out the rest of us blacks for that talented 10%, as W.E.B. Du Bois says, the reason John Lewis now is stressing out because he knows with Donald Trump and those folks, they don't need you anymore. And I hope, there's only one wish I have. I hope to God I live long enough to see Michael Steele and Larry Elder and all these other sellouts hanging from the tree that the John Birch Society's got planned for them. Let's move on, man.
800-450-7876. Tokyomo's calling us on line 6. He's calling from the district. I know we're coming up on a break, but Tokyomo, your question or your comment for Mark?
Whoa.
Yes.
Brother, where you calling from?
Yes.
Where you calling from, brother?
I'm in Washington, D.C. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good evening, gentlemen. I am a long-time listener of this show. I'd like to say, isn't this the same brother who came up in the air about the summer of this last year telling us the Republican Party wants to push Jeb Bush is going to be the nominee for the party?
No, that was Craig Hewlett. I've never made a prediction about who would be president.
That was somebody else, Craig Hewlett?
Craig Hewlett. To this day, okay. I still have not predicted who's going to be the president. And by the way, Mr. Nelson will tell you, in the January of every election, I used to always come on with him and tell him who would be the president in January. This is the only election where I have never, ever made a prediction because there's something terribly wrong.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I think I got you mixed up with somebody. You said Craig Hewlett.
But brother, at least you asked instead of accusing me. But go ahead, brother.
All right, hang on a second, Tokyo, because we got to take our last break here. 800-450-7876. Speak to Mark from Anaheim. All your calls next on AM 1450 and FM 95.9. WOS to Mark from Anaheim. Again, the number is 800-450-7876. And Tokyo, do you have a question? Because we got a bunch of folks who have questions for Mark. What is your question?
Yes, my question is to the general public. Why are we surprised at the kind of nominee Donald Trump has in his cabinet? When we know the kind of person he is anyway, the country has made a decision to elect a nincompoop to the White House. So why are we surprised?
All right, let's get him to respond to that. Thanks, Tokyomo. Mark, he says, why are we surprised by Trump's cabinet?
Well, the brother asked, and I'm glad he asked, because so many people accuse me of stuff that I didn't say or repeat and claim that they're quoting me when I didn't say those things. I have never predicted who would be sworn in as president. However, let me remind the listeners, in 2014, there is something I did say, though. I came on this show with Mr. Nelson back in 2014, and I specifically stated Hillary Clinton would never be U.S. president. Now, we're less than 24 hours before Donald Trump's swearing in, and I'm still not predicting who's going to be the U.S. president. I'd never seen anything like this. I don't consider myself psychic. Growing up in a Judeo-Christian background, I'm not into the psychic realm. But, Mr. Nelson, as you know, I always come on you, and that's the brother Dick Gregory. He always calls me the human early warning system or whatever. So I guess a lot of people, for lack of a better term, consider me psychic. I'm not into that world. But I see things, and I guess other people can't see it. I don't do it anymore at surf contests, because I used to just randomly talk about surf contests and thought people were having conversations with me, not realizing that they were going on Australian and Japanese betting websites after they talked to me, and they were winning lots of money, because I would always tell them who's going to win the contest. I don't do that anymore, contests. But this has been the most bizarre election year ever. Now, you have a guy, Ed Dame, who's into the so-called remote viewing, and that's the program a lot of CIA high-ranking generals in the Pentagon were involved with back in the 80s and stuff, and I refused to go into that program because a lot of people in that program are Luciferians, satanic worshipers, guys like Michael Aquino, and people who had much higher security ratings than I did. And I'll just say Ed Dames came out and he said, by the way, if you ever see the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. Trust me, folks, that movie is a lot more realistic based on the truth than you will ever believe. But Men Who Stare at Goats, Ed Dames, who was a technical advisor in that movie, he said that there was not going to be an election. Now, I never gone that far, but what I just said was there's something terribly wrong. And I'm still telling you, folks, there's something terribly wrong with this election. Whether it's the Putin agenda, I don't know. What I will say to you is this. Lucifer is having a good time, folks. Lucifer is having a good time. If you truly check the backgrounds of many of these folks, including the ones who go out of their way to tell you how religious they are, they're into some serious demonic rituals. And I know Mayhem, who's a lot more intelligent than he tries to let on in the show, when he talked about who are they trying to reincarnate. The United States, and this is what got Martin Luther King killed, by the way. Martin Luther King Jr. was neither a Democratic nor a Republican, just as myself. I'm neither. In 1960, he said, I can't recommend the Democratic Party or the Republican Party for Negro, because that's what they called us back then, for Negro folks to vote. So I love it in right-wing radio. And I will say this about Larry Elder, who I'm no fan of, but since his dad was a Montfort Point Marine, I give him a little love. Larry no longer uses that crap that the Republicans were saying that King was a Republican, because he wasn't. And I called him on it. Now, you still have folks like Ralph Abernathy, you know, they love him because Ralph Abernathy was not only a Republican, Mr. Nelson, he heavily campaigned for George Bush back in 1988, right? But, that's Ralph Abernathy. So I'm just saying this to you folks because the thing is, we are living in a very decadent society. The primary reason why I'm leaving this radio show, if Trump, Pence, or any other John Birch Society member swears in, Craig Hewlett, he's the one who predicted Jeb Bush was going to win. Craig Hewlett told me with Carl Nelson back in 1994, Mark, in a decadent society, you should listen to this adage. I was told a long time ago, in a decadent society, a prudent man needs to learn to keep his mouth shut. Well, sir, Mr. Nelson, we are living in a decadent society like I've never seen before in my life. What you had in the past, the corporate fascists would pick people to run for office to do their bidding. Now they've just eliminated the politicians and they're running for the offices themselves. That's how corrupt we've got. If you truly look at the folks, including Trump, who we have put in places of power and going to be cabinet members, they're billionaires who no longer even want the politicians to be the front man for them. They're just going to do it themselves. They're Luciferians. They're evil to the core. And just like the so-called ISIS, which is not the true religion of Islam, these evangelicals are not the true religion of Christianity. And they are working on an all-worldwide caliphate. Trump's administration is going to move the the embassy for the United States from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. If you guys go back and watch the television series Dig, you'll see what happens in that movie where they try to do this reincarnation to bring an all-worldwide caliphate while they're digging underneath the most holy site for Muslims in Jerusalem. Folks, as I'm talking to you on the phone right now, they're doing that in Israel. Mattis, rabid. They hate the Jews as much as they hate the Muslims, but they'll use the Jews to justify being over there. Flynn doesn't even recognize Islam as a religion. So that gives you an idea of what you're dealing with, folks. We are headed for a world war. Meanwhile, they talk about China. Now, China is surrounded on all sides by the U.S. and NATO. So China has started developing artificial islands, and they're putting missiles on it. Russia. The United States, ever since Bill Clinton got in the White House, violated every promise they made and has surrounded Russia with NATO forces. We're putting in more anti-ballistic missiles into Poland right now as I'm speaking to you on the phone. Russia is surrounded on all sides. Ukraine, John McCain and his folks went over there and sabotaged that election and put in a fascist. Everywhere around the world, folks, as I'm speaking to you on the phone right now, while you folks are living in the Cold War past, Putin is not a communist. He's a corporate fascist. The only major party left, or I should say country left, is Germany under Merkel. So what do? They staged that BS terrorist attack with this truck bomber who drove through the crowds and killed everybody with a truck. And now they're going to say Merkel's at fault because she let the immigrants in. Once Merkel goes down, Germany will also be controlled by fascists. In Great Britain right now, fascists runs it. France, fascists. Why? Because of terrorist attacks. They do these terrorist attacks and people go, oh, no, we can't vote for you. United States, we had San Bernardino. Now, 3 black attired white men were cited by a witness moments after the shooting in San Bernardino, but you're told that a Muslim wife and husband did it. And so you vote for Donald Trump because he's going to make you feel better. In the law enforcement and police departments and armed forces right now, you have the Oath Keepers. This guy, Stephen, founder of the Oath Keepers, he bragged on Coast to Coast AM how he's using the same document that they use in Libya, Syria, Egypt, and all these other countries to create a civil war, and he was going to use it here. And they're doing it, Mr. Nelson. And it's not just a Republican thing. You're going to have demonstrations in D.C. tomorrow and on Sunday like you've never seen before, and the Democratic Party, these folks are calling it the democracy spring. That's what they call it over in these Middle East countries, Arab Spring. The document is by a guy, it's called From Dictatorship to Democracy by Frank Sharp, I believe it is. These folks are using it here as a textbook. There will be chaos in this country like you have never seen before. You folks can believe what the hell you want, but like Tariq told you earlier, and like Mayhem just said, this ain't no entertainment show, folks. It's coming down. I plan on spending my last few days on this planet quietly working with my little female surfers, coaching them along. When we're out there surfing, I don't think a damn thing about these politics. And I thank you, Mr. Nelson, for allowing me on your show today because, trust me, folks, it's been a fun ride, but I got to spend my last days taking care of me. You folks get your bug-out bags. I have it on Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101 site. You better start going to a gun range, Mr. Nelson, because all your enemies are. You need to start respecting your families more, folks. You need to get closer to God, folks. You need to start keeping no less than a quarter of a tank of gas in your vehicles, folks. You need to stop putting your personal business on social media sites, folks. Get closer to God, start loving your own family members again, and start taking care of each other.
All right, we still got like 8 minutes. You want to take another call?
You do what you want, sir. It's your show.
All right. Homer's waiting for us. Been holding for a while. He's on line 2. He's calling us from the ATL. Homer.
That,
hey, Mark. How you doing?
Every day is a holiday, sir.
Good. So, just real quick, you had mentioned earlier in the show about these contractors flying in prostitutes from Russia.
That's
I just
correct.
wanted to, when you said that, it triggered something. I have an acquaintance of mine who's a contractor in Afghanistan, and he tells me about every month they fly in prostitutes from Romania and Kenya.
Hell yeah. And I'll tell you something else.
And I just was laughing when you said it.
Check this out. This goes back to the Clinton administration. In the Clinton administration, there was a white female. She was a cop. And she went over to Bosnia, I believe it was. Bosnia. And so she was working over there as a contractor, and she started investigating and realizing that all these 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls were being used for prostitution, and nobody would do anything about it because guess what? It was the U.S. private contractors over there like DynCorp and these other companies that were using these girls for prostitution, worldwide child prostitution. She started investigating it. She started getting death threats on her life. And, they ended up making a movie about it. What I'm just saying is this is something that has been going on for a long time. But now with the Russians, and as you heard somebody respond the other day about Trump and the Russian president, well, we're not going to say that, we're not going to say that Trump got a golden shower from no Russian whore, but we will say we have the best whores on the planet. And trust me, I wish I was making this stuff up. They are bringing in, as they call it, the prime Russian prostitutes into places like Dubai and all these private contractors, mercenaries. That's where they go to hook up. But I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
So I got 2 quick questions. So my first question has to do with the spree of over the, I would get to say, the last year of these mass shootings, from the cop killings in Dallas and Baton Rouge to the Fort Lauderdale shootings, and all these guys being ex-military.
Thank God you asked that question.
So I was wondering, are we going to see more trends of that as we see more combat vets come home with PTSD and other, I guess you could say, psychological?
All right, let's give him a chance to respond. Because we got like 60 seconds.
What's your second question, sir?
I think he's gone. We got 60 seconds more.
Well, okay, I'm glad he asked this question, folks. This is very important. Now, right here in L.A., in the last 96 hours, Jim McDonald, former LAPD deputy chief, now sheriff, announced that they're going to use drones at the sheriff's department. A lot of folks know that I was probably the original target for that whole Christopher Dorner thing. I was on live with Mr. Nelson, and I told his listeners, if they didn't see Christopher Dorner come outside in his chonies, he would be dead.
We're dead. We're dead out of time. Mark, real quick, how can they reach you?
Find me, Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101, because, folks, I didn't tell you what's coming down. I'll put it on that site.
All right, folks, we're out of here.